Before we begin, doing roster videos takes quite a lot of time, mental energy, writing, and research. So if you like what we're, aka I'm doing here, please don't be afraid to like, comment, subscribe, share the video around, and leave a comment asking what you thought. This video is not sponsored by Capcom. I legitimately respect the Battle Network and Starforce Mega Man franchises that much. But if you have the means, I highly suggest you go buy the Battle Network and Starforce Legacy collection. Capcom needs people to see just how badly people love Mega Man besides just the original and X. And while Capcom has been getting better in this regard, I have never been fond of Mega Man's treatment as an IP lately. Between Legends 3 getting shut down, the broadcasting for Mega Man NT Warrior and the Rockman EXE anime dub skipping episodes, and being broadcast so inconsistently despite the dub's performances aging surprisingly well, that after Access we never got dubs for stream through Beast Plus. And while the fan translations for the subs were complete, thank you so much for the sub teams for that. Starforce's anime only got dubbed halfway. The Starforce Tribe anime also got cut short when it was planned to be 55 episodes and have the other Tribon forms be used. And we never got a season 3 since the makings to adapt Starforce 3 in the anime were cut thanks to Tribe getting cut short despite being perfect for it. Then Fully Charged was so mistreated so badly by Cartoon Network that you had to wake up early in the morning to watch the episodes. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I'm glad Mega Man is finally being treated with more respect by Capcom. BIP of Bizarre Angels Productions and the Mega Man Starforce Legacy Collection should be out, and despite my financial situation being unable to get the game, y'all know I've been a big fan of Mega Man NT Warrior and Starforce's anime, and thus my respect for the games in these sub-franchises still have a special place in my heart. People love the games, for the most part, and usually when it comes to EXE and Starforce, people want these characters in crossovers, but to a much lesser degree, though I can at least name 4 characters from this franchise that are placed pretty high up, but outside of wishlist, they aren't everyone's first choice. Heck, Dorgy already made a build a fighter for Mega Man, more on that later, and if you watch my Nickelodeon vs. Capcom video, you know I've criticized how Capcom console crossovers have only focused on the first 3 Mega Man franchises. Classic, Roll, and X, Zero, Sigma, and Tronbon have been playable in Marvel vs. Capcom games, and Mega Man Volnut was playable in Tatsunoko. To the point, EXE only getting to be a guest fighter in Onimusha Blade Warriors is questionably criminal. Like, where's the Starforce representation too? Then, for Street Fighter 6, Capcom announced a new collaboration event in Street Fighter 6 with items you can obtain and a new look during the event, complete with concept art featuring not just Land and Geo with the respective Mega Man, but also the cast. Well, a fair bit of the main cast members, as well as the Mega Mans, Rolls, Proto Mans, and Bass of each series. So, tell you what, type Mega Man Legacy and we're gonna build that roster for Mega Man Battle Network versus Mega Man Starforce. So, how are we doing this crossover? Tag Fighter, since 2 sub-franchises are crossing over. King of Fighters 15 had 39 characters at launch, and while they did reuse animations and made new models, give Capcom the right budget and resources and they can make a miracle, so we're going up to 40 characters. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite reused assets and got up to 30, but as long as we repurpose animations and models well, we can avoid that situation. And let's get into that build that roster, shall we? When Dorgy did his builder roster, which is separate, the and dots are different, he made separate versions for Mega Man Classic X and Battle Network, but he said to make Starforce DLC for Battle Network. And while I didn't entirely dislike the roster, the Starforce characters definitely have enough characters to make their own roster, which was what I was originally going to do before this official art was confirmed. And there's a few people I think Dorky should have considered on the Battle Network roster. Also, 2 disclaimers. I'm more of a video game spectator, so I'm not the best at explaining or understanding how fighting mechanics 100% work. And B, I'm more experienced with the anime while I've had to research a few things for the games, but I've been doing that for a year to learn more about these franchises. I'm also going to try and do what I did with my Nickelodeon vs. Capcom roster and make the EXE and Starforce rivals, so I'll mostly be talking about characters in duos. So let's get started with the obvious duo. Mega Man EXE and Mega Man Starforce. These 2 are like the no-brainer. They've teamed up before. The question is, what exactly would we do in terms of playstyle and aesthetics to separate them? Well, because most net navis have net ops, having Land Jack Mega Man into the battle for an intro would actually be pretty cool and fitting. And I do think we should have the human partners in the game for both interactions, either in terms of versus or if there's some sort of story mode, which I'm down for. Look, who wouldn't want to see Land reacting to a Megasis? Heck, they have teamed up before, so we can say, hey, I know you from before. As for playstyles, Mega Man has always been depicted as a jack of all stats with a wide arsenal. Dorgy had the idea you start off with multiple weapons and then you end up losing them, but I think something more interesting would be having Mega Man start off without his battle chips, and then by doing different combos and attacks, you get new chips that he can either use to extend his combos or enhance his EX moves and specials, with his big supers being the program advances. And his ultimate super can either be hub style, full synchro with Lan, or they can take from the anime and combine Gregar and Falzar into Juka for a finishing attack. I really want to use cross fusion, but I'm not sure they have the rights to use it, but you can make that an alternate skin or possibility in the story mode. As for Geo and Mega Man, he started off more introverted and cautious thanks to his depression, since, losing your dad is going to do that to you. So I think using his powers with phasing, we can make him more evasive and faster, but he's able to use his battle cards more effectively when he gets closer to the opponent. I guess you could make his supers either one of the Star Forces from the first game for her level 1, level 2 the Tribe King, and level 3 he can either use Black Ace or Red Joker's ultimate attack. And it'd be so cool if you could get DLC or unlock alternate versions. Everyone has always wanted EXE in a fighting game, and Star Force has been robbed of representation for quite some time. And when there's rock, there must be roll, specifically roll EXE and her net operator Melu and Harp Note. This one is also a no-brainer. I know the poster put Sonya and Iris across each other, but Iris can't fight, and they put Harp Note and roll EXE across from each other underneath the Mega, so this was an easy no-duh. The human selves and roll are the love interest to their respective Mega Boys, and they followed the trend of reimaginings of roll, with Harp Note being more of a mix of Proto Man and roll being Geo's secondary writer. But I'm also including them for a few reasons. Roll EXE is criminally underrated. Her Roll Blast is a barrage of hearts. She can use roll control to make an opponent or virus obey her, which would be perfect for scrambling the other player's movements as a status effect. She's got her arrows, which we can have charged for more damage, and her Heart Flash is hitting people with her antenna. She can also teleport and has a barrier, so she'd be perfect as a character who can work at different ranges, who you can play as in any form. The second reason is that outside of Battle Network 4.5, Roll has never been playable, even though the 5th game had an opportunity to make her and Melu join either Team Proto Man or Team Colonel, which shocked me since some of the games, especially 4, set up that she wanted to get stronger and help Mega Man fight the villains, to the point the anime actually kept her in the main class, helping Land and Mega Man fight World 3 and Gospel, but when they adapted Stream, made her and Melu a member of the Cross Fusion team after teasing it in Access. Because why wouldn't you want 2 medics? So yeah, let's take the opportunity to finally let people play as her again. For her ultimate, I want to take a cue from when they defeated Desert Man in the anime and Cross Fusion. Roll summons a giant hole into the ground, sucking the user into a void of nothing before using her roll arrow to deliver one blast with the power of a charge shot, sending them straight into the void, deleting them for massive damage. As for Harp Note, none of the games have ever let you play as her, which is crazy because when Japan did a poll for the most wanted characters they wanted in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Mega Man EXE was number 2, X was 3, and Harp Note was 8th place over Leon frickin' Kennedy from Resident Evil. Plus, when you look at her game and anime, you have a lot to work with. Shockwaves from her singing, a guitar that she can use for normals, using her strings to bind, throw, and ensnare enemies, making her a pseudo-grappler, summoning giant speakers, firing giant notes, and I'm not going to come up with ultimates for everyone, but I feel like she deserves one, especially since the anime let her use battle cards. I would say have her drop your opponent into a giant concert, and then after one hard swing of the guitar, she emits a gigantic note in the shape of the constellation she's based off, Lyra. So we've got the roles. Let's move on to the other recurring role in this franchise. Chad with Proto Man EXE and Acid Ace. Okay, this is a no-brainer. Every Mega Man adjacent series has tried in some way or form to have the red guy who occasionally is Mega Man's wildcard ally. Except for Legends, I don't know who would be in that one. Proto Man is iconic. Zero is the whole reason why you will never see Proto Man EXE in one of the Marvel vs. Capcom games, unless you're exclusively focused on a franchise that's not X. So we're taking that opportunity here. Chad and Proto Man have been in practically every Battle Network related game, both as the rival and the ally, leading his own team in 5, and had a major arc in the anime, especially with the Dark Proto Man plotline. So we're going to take the opportunity for him to be playable, and I don't think we really need to go into that many details about his playstyle since he's all attack and swords, although I would give him a few things like Onimusha Blade from the games, manga, and anime. And you could make his ultimates and supers his sword blades program advances. And Ace is actually a pretty good rival to Chad. Both of them are professional crime fighters and prodigies on the police force, not to mention both of them became leaders of their respective teams. And while Proto Man usually relies on swords, Acid Ace relies on a whole arsenal of weaponry, so he'd be another fighter with a lot of tools that you have to master. We're going to do this one in pairs. Dex with Gutsman EXE and Taurus Fire. Okay, this one is very weird to talk about because Dex is a fan favorite and everyone has always wanted him to be more involved in the plot. But unlike Melu, who never got a chance to join the team in the anime, unlike the game, but he still helped out in Access and Stream, partially through training with a former terrorist cell, but consequences for villains as part of a syndicate will come later in that show anyway. Plus, Gutsman EXE is based off, well, Gutsman. So he would traditionally be the slow heavy bruiser and grappler, but I also want to give him a few more abilities because Dex can use program advances and there are some specifically catered for him, especially in the anime. They let him use Giga Time Bomber or Time Boomer. Ice Ball, and Body Double. So we can make a few of those special moves for some of them to help him deal with range and zoning, while we'll save the big program advances for his ultimates. As for Taurus Fire, he's sort of a Gutsman x Fireman mixed with Dex, because his host Bud is also the big guy of Starforce's friend group and got his EM partner targeting him for his loneliness before becoming true partners in the third game. Plus, Bud and Taurus are into rugby and based off Minotaurs, so we're going to make them the Juggernaut. All power and refusal to stop hitting, but they're slow outside of their charging attacks, though they can use knuckle battle card attacks to get in close. So you would have to be careful to dodge its high speed attacks as well. Plus, in terms of character dynamics, Dex never got to join the team in the games, while Bud did and got to work with the rest of them as a team, so we could have some fun dialogue and interactions about that. Now I'm going to have a few surprises in the main cast that you guys wouldn't be expecting. Yai with Glide EXE and Luna wave changing with Queen Ophiuchus or Ophiuchus. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did ya? Explanation time. I said about the promotion art was a good basis. There were a few people where I was questioning why they were pitted against each other, and while Yai was the least used of the core 5 in Battle Network, Luna was pretty active as a character, but she never got a chance to transform again outside of post and side game content, because Ephemians can be revived to the point where the anime brought most of them back at the end of Tribe, though that could have been explained with the Matter Waves or King Cepheus reviving them. Heck, Taurus was back in 3, so in the story, we can have Luna wave change with Ophiuchus if we can write a reason a la Ophiuchus is trying to reform. We don't have a lot of female net ops, partners, or allies, so Ophiuchus as a fighter would be a cool fit for that. She can summon snakes to attack, commanding organic snakes in the real world to do her bidding, use the giant snake as an ultimate, charging her opponent, her Gorgon eye beam charge that shatters shields, perfect for another ultimate, not to mention all the grappling techniques, because, you know, snake. So why pair her with Yai and why use Glide? Both of them are the rich girls with hidden depths to them, and they're friends with people who aren't as successful as them, but they still like and respect them. Plus, the interactions between them would be pretty funny and cool. So, how would we make Glide play? Especially since not even the rare spin-offs never gave him a chance. Well, based on aspects like his flight, we can make him someone who's kind of average on the ground, but he's pretty good at juggling and keeping people in the air alongside some super speed attacks. And the anime actually did something interesting with Yai and Glide by having them use very rare and powerful battle chips, but the problem is Yai doesn't battle as often, so she pretty kind of uses them inconsistently or not as well as the others. So we're going to make her special attacks ones that are hard to use, but if you're skilled enough, you'll know how to use them effectively. Which basically means we have almost all the main characters of both franchises. Wait, aren't you forgetting someone? Oh yeah, Zach. Unfortunately, he never got a chance to wave change, so there's really not that much I can do to make him a playable character, but we could make him that person who runs the gallery for the game. After all, he has his own Wikipedia in the Zachpedia. Script edition, we can also add Higure as a shop owner so you can buy cosmetics for him and they can run it together. But we have the Mega Man archetype, the Roll archetype, the Proto Man archetype, the Gutsman archetype, and the Rich Girl, which only leaves one Mega Man archetype that's not a complete villain yet. The Dark Rival. Give it up for the other pair that was on the page, Base EXE and Rogue, aka Solo. Easily Mega Man's most dangerous rival that usually have their own agenda, with Base EXE's backstory being kind of depressing, falsely accused of causing bugs in Alpha's system when it was Alpha's fault. Meanwhile, depending on the game or the anime, Solo was the last of his people trying to restore his lost civilization to greatness, who in the games was bullied, or in the anime watched all of his friends lose their lives to ensure that Ramu was sealed, trying to fight everyone to stop them from getting the Oparts, to match their tragedy in terms of combat. These two are some of the most dangerous fighters. In the games, you know that these guys are tough. In the anime, these two are downright broken. Even when Base lost in the anime, he came back with Nebula Grey powers and beat the ever-living snuffing out of Slur, because battle is his forte, while Rogue was able to take down anyone in Star Force with the exception of Hollow and Thunder Zerker Mega Man. So for these two, their attacks would be super powerful and destructive, but just require a cooldown. But they will all attack first and ask questions later. Plus, it'd be a great opportunity to have Rogue use Laplace in combat while Base uses moves from the manga, with him merging one of the side beasts. Up to you on which fits more. I want you guys to decide what their supers or ultimate would be though, but crossover-wise, we could take the opportunity to have Base recover some of his memories, while Solo still tries to ensure that there's no Miriam technology being used to revive Mu. But a talk between these two would be pretty interesting. Moving on, we've got one more pair to talk about from the official arts. Beryl, what Colonel EXE, and Tia, aka Queen Virgo. These two are interesting in terms of why they were chosen. Both of their backstories roll around being associated with war, with Tia being an orphan who was recruited to join what seems like an orphanage and philanthropy organization that in reality were using the children that they have as child soldiers. While Beryl is seen as the leader of Team Colonel, trying to free the incident from Nebula's influence, only for it to be revealed in the games that he was loyal to Wily. While in the anime, they kind of have to go back in time to recruit him to help save the Earth, and basically had to convince Duo to spare them. And in the games, both of them ultimately struggle in ultimately deciding to stop their adopted fathers of their own free will. So the connection actually kind of works. As for how both of them fight, Colonel's pretty easy. While he is fairly fast, we do need to balance him, and he does use a lot of giant guns and a giant laser blade. So we'll give him a long reach on his attacks, but he wouldn't be fast. Although we would let him use his ability to command soldiers by summoning them for battle chips, and he can use them for extra defense, and give him time to get up close. He has an ultimate move in the games where he throws his cape on the opponent before finishing them off with a slash, which is pretty similar to Metal Knight's final smash, so I think that works. As for Tia, when she transforms into Queen Virgo, which is the first time I've ever seen Virgo with water powers in media, that's pretty cool, but she has a cool staff for offense and is able to use her dress armor for extreme protection. So we're going to make her character with a lot of defense and a lot of zoning and trapping tools for her water attacks to keep the opponent away, but she'll be tough to try to get out of juggles, so if you can't get in close, she'll have an obstacle course for you, but to compensate, we'll give her cooldown as well. So you have to time how close you can get to her, and the player has to time how well they use her attacks effectively. Okay, we got all the big names on the poster, so let's get a bit more creative with our choices. Our 8th pair is going to be Fireman EXE, aka Torchman if you watch the dub, owned by Mr. Match and Wolf Woods, aka the Gardener. I don't want to put too many fire characters, although Starforce fans, I know what you're thinking when I say that, and don't worry, I have one more person that fits that description that you guys really want, but I'll have to save them for later. For now, this one's pretty easy to explain. I'll start with Wolf Woods first. He is a rush-down Wolverine character, but similar to Logan and Tokon, he's got ranged attack claw slashes, but he's fast, powerful, dangerous, and even in the anime, he gives Mega Man a hard time. But not only does he have one of the more emotional episodes if you've seen the anime, his host also has a cute scene that made people endearing to him, and both of them have returned in the 3rd game as an ally and member of the Transcode Project. Plus, I forgot to write this in the script, but he does have a alternate version where, at least underneath the moon, he turns red and gets even more powerful. Meanwhile, I have seen a little bit of hate towards Mr. Match lately, but he's still a popular net op alongside his Navi Fireman, to the point where not only was he the starter villain, he has appeared in at least 5 out of 6 games in the Battle Network series, and not only does the anime make him Lan's rival in the 1st season as a member of World 3, he also got focus episodes dedicated to Fireman to change to Heatman as they fought Gospel, and in Access, Fireman returned to work with Mega Man again against Plant Man. And not only do we have a Mega and Fire Navi working together in Star Force 3, even Mega Man Fully Charged had their Mega Man and Fireman working together against their version of Base. So if a cartoon can reference that, he has to get in. Fireman is actually pretty well rounded. He's got a fire sword, flame tower for defense, and range, and he is far from slow. Plus his firearm works as an effective flamethrower, so he would basically be another all-rounder, except his specials would be kind of hard to spam. So you have to play smart before you're ready to light your opponent up. But there's one fan favorite you've wanted to return to Star Force in some way or form, so let's bring up that person in the next pair. Magnet Man, owned by Tesla Magnus and Gemini Spark. Okay, I know I've been having some weird picks enough as it is, but you picked Magnet Man over Elect Man? Why? Okay, don't get me wrong, I actually do like Elect Man EXE a lot. That sacrifice to help Mega Man defeat Magnet still hits my mind. But you put his killer instead? Originally, I did have Elect Man on this roster, and I was going to pit him with Gemini. It's one lightning user with decent speed versus a 2-person team with lightning powers. But as I was thinking about who would be a good rival for who, I remembered what Magnet Man could do. Split himself in 2. Okay, no, he produces a blue version of himself and the two become balls and pin their opponent, smashing them into them, which would make for a really ineffective ultimate if we did that and upgraded the cinematics. But you could also have the clone be summoned out by spending half a meter and would basically double up on Magnet Man's attacks, like firing, magnet missiles, creating a ball of electricity, pulling the opponent down to the ground of a magnetic line, and then kicking them across or firing away to scramble the opponent. And these are moves he used in both the games and the anime. Not to mention each of his abilities, we can also give him super armor for float shoes, and we could play with his repel and retract, but would be things he would need to be balanced in order to make sure that he's not too overpowered. And we'll make Tesla his owner because in Battle Network 5 in stream, she became Magnet Man's new user and joined the heroes, although in the anime it took a while because she was kind of the main secondary villain amongst the heroes for a while until Dark Mega Man kind of forced her to change sides. As for Gemini Spark, Dorgy was questioning whether or not this was a wild pick that was too crazy or a good choice. And when I tell you guys that Starforce fans love Gemini Spark, they love him, me included. Pat and Ray have a backstory that's a little messy in the game, so understandable, and more reasonable in the anime. But Gemini taking advantage of a kid with DID is not only evil, but the fact that they're basically a 2-in-1 fighter who are Mega Man's most deadliest human opponent is insane. Not only was their arc emotional in the games, in the anime, Gemini was such a menace that the only time Mega Man was able to successfully beat them was with the Starforce, and these two were able to slaughter at least 5 members of their species on their own, but they were never even an optional boss in 3, and fans still claim that it should have been part of the narrative. And the manga chapter that was the epilogue had him too, so they have to get in. Compared to Magnet Man who only uses clone for specials, Gemini usually attacks together, so we can have normal combos that rely on a clone extending longer combos, and for specials, we can bring out the other one, holding an opponent in place so the other guy hits them across the floor, throwing one to hit the other across the stage. So we would make them more of a Rekka fighter, who if you use a super or have to prep another button to hold it, you can make Gemini attack the opponent twice. And he has quite the arsenal. Rocket Knuckle, Elect Sword, Gemini Thunder is already a perfect beam super. Our battle cards like Plasma, Gun, Thunderball, Barrier, Stun Knuckle, Destroy Missile. And for his ultimate, we can take something from the manga where Gemini combines together by using the Starforce, electrocuting the opponent so much it feels like they've been split in half. That was a lot, so let's go with something less intense. Or comedic. I'm gonna regret this one. Bubble Man EXE and Cancer Bubble. Okay, let's get these two out of the way since people are going to be mad at me for even suggesting the idea of having two lethal joke characters that seem similar on the surface. But regardless, let's talk about them. Bubble Man is either one of the net navies you either hate or love to hate on, with the anime kind of putting him in the middle as someone who's comedic relief, but actually has a few redeeming qualities like his friendship with the other Aqua and Ice navies that the heroes own, alongside his loyalty to Shade Man, which is surprisingly wholesome. Meanwhile, Cancer Bubble was sort of like an optional boss in the games, and the anime kind of made him the comic relief villain, as well as the Butt Monkey. Meanwhile, in the games, Cancer Bubble's host kind of just liked fighting, while the anime made him a fan of Sona. So, gameplay-wise, what should we do? Well, for Cancer Bubble, he can launch his pincer as a boomerang, and his tidal wave works for a super, so he'll make him more offensive and kind of be like a hybrid of what Cutman would be like if he was in this game. Firing his bubbles a la rapid projectiles, but can be broken if the opponent hits them fast enough, can summon or hide behind crabs to rush on at their opponent, fire his claws from afar, so he'd be a glass cannon with a lot of options. As for Bubble Man EXE, he'd be more of a trapping zoner, setting up bubbles that can trap people, fish missiles to hone in on the opponent, having mines, throwing a crab, and firing his harpoon, which we can make as an ultimate, and make augmented supers for those attacks. But the other reason I'm making him playable is that the anime had him grow giant at one time, so we can make him bigger so normals can work on anyone that has to fight him. And the second reason is that if you put a character fans hate, every YouTube complication is going to have him be the punching bag, and this character is so hated that people are going to take the opportunity to test their skills beating the crap out of him. And sometimes, hatred sells. But let's move on to two examples that people wouldn't normally have if they made a roster like this. Narcy and Video Man EXE and Crown Thunder. Okay, Narcy isn't exactly everyone's favorite cup of tea, so I'm purely picking this based off Video Man EXE. There's a few characters that could be grapplers or have grapple-like moves in Battle Network, but I feel like between him and Punk, Video Man EXE is the one with the more interesting moveset potential. Plus, the anime let him be a villain for two different organizations, which I'm actually going to take cue from, since they really went out of their way to showcase that potential. He can use a tape line in order to reel the opponent in or slam a roll of tape on their opponent and pull them close or bring them away. He's able to project a copy of Mega Man, so we could turn that into him either using it as a shield the opponent has to break, or throw it, a fast forward technique where his body turns red and he moves faster, which we can use an install, and he has a rewind ability called Healing that only stops working if you hit him. So I think it could be an interesting grappler glass cannon hybrid where he has all his variety of techniques and a healing, but if he gets hurt, he's going down quick. Plus, his ultimate could basically be summoning different photocopies of the opponent and just bombarding them with the copies in the anime, which would be really sick to see as a cinematic. As for Crown Thunder, fighting games have never been afraid to put some really chaotic and interesting characters that have people raising their heads, and Crown is just freaking insane in the best possible way. The human that he uses to transform is a dead human king, whose ghost remaining was able to transform into Crown Thunder, and the anime introduced him by fighting everyone after he was resurrected in an abandoned amusement park, and he's got a ton of abilities. Firing a skull that uses a crossbow that can also fire arrows, a skull that uses a lance, summoning a skull as a hammer. The anime gave him a technique that allows him to fuse with bones or skeletons, which we can turn into an ultimate. And for another super, he basically has a technique where he places traps for lightning to strike. So he would be a character that has all the crazy tools, but you kind of have to understand how to use them, and that is what we call fun. But let's move back to some fan favorite characters and some big names I haven't mentioned yet. Leica with Searchman EXE and Jack Corvus. Yes, I am aware that putting a Zoner and a Rushdown character as rival is either pure irony or actually intentional, but there's actually another reason why I'm putting these two as rivals in the game. Both of them started out as child soldiers, but from different ways of life. Leica was raised by society in order to be an effective soldier, and while his methods are strict, he is fighting on the side of the good guys. Meanwhile, Jack was an orphan alongside his sister Tia, who I mentioned earlier, and they were adopted by a philanthropist who turned out to use them as a friend in order to mastermind his operations as dealer, using his adopted children as soldiers who almost never came back alive, and those who just happened to be the most talented and could wave change, which is why they've survived for this long. With Jack starting out as an angry kid who really not got a chance at a normal life, so he and his sister infiltrate the school in the third game, and part of his development is realizing that they can get away from that. So you have one person that willingly chose to fight, while another child was forced into accepting that part of life. I feel like I don't need to talk about their moveset since they kind of speak for themselves, but the only real problem I forgot to mention with his sister Tia is that their partners are kind of sociopathic and also tried to murder them when they decided to switch sides. But I think we could write that in order to serve their time and not get punished by King Cepheus, they kind of don't have a choice but to work with them for whatever the plot of the game is going to be. Then we have Dark Miyabi and Shadowman EXE and Kung Fu Kid. As fun as it would be to pair up two ninja characters, the only problem Starforce has is that they don't exactly have a ninja character, but a form, and I'm not going to turn a form into a whole character, for now. But there was a character who wasn't adapted into the Tribe anime, and that was Kung Fu Kid, based off the Capricorn Zodiac. It's just funny because I think Starforce really only adapted half of the 12 to 13 potential Zodiac. Well, Leo's one of the Starforces. We have Gemini, Taurus, Ophiuchus, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, and Virgo. I guess with Aquarius and Pisces, they didn't want to have too many water or wind bosses, or were worried that Aries and Sagittarius were going to overlap with Capricorn and Taurus. But we never actually saw what FM looked like in the game, only the EM wave change of the human and human host. And not only is this host a pretty cool kid who's been training in martial arts, they even have two techniques where they can make clones of themselves to help attack the opponent and change their size, which works great for super specials and cinematic ultimates. Both of these guys would be rushed down, but Shadowman EXE would more focus on the balance of using his weapons, while Kid would be more aggressive straightforward and will feel like a welcome surprise for fans. Alright, time to get some more villains onto this roster. Next up is Shademan EXE and Dark Phantom. Okay, Shademan is kind of obvious, like he was a recurring antagonist in Battle Network 4 and 5, as well as Bowtie, and he was essentially the secondary antagonist of Access and got an entire run back in stream. So he's memorable enough, and he has a plethora of abilities, including the fact that while we can't turn this into a normal move, that he is able to corrupt people, which would be a really cool cinematic ultimate. He can steal your opponent's health that we will just have to make a super so it's not too busted. Not to mention all the potential they can do with both his move pool and his bat features. As for Dark Phantom, look, I know people are very hot and cold on his character in the games, but he's absolutely hilarious in the anime. His evasive fighting style is so fun to watch, and if people hated his personality in the game, we could just make his personality in the anime where he wants eternal life and is more of an artist than a theater performer. It doesn't matter for me, but if we're gonna make this guy a fighter since he does have a pretty cool arsenal, we might as well up his personality. Plus, in the games, both of them did work for different organizations, so we can take from the anime and have them now be independent or form their own group where they become the leaders. But let's get some more villains on this roster too. Darkman EXE and Hollow/Empty. Okay, Darkman is an interesting choice, who, if you don't know since you only watch the anime dubbed, he's essentially an independent net navi that worked as an assassin, but Serenade defeated him, so he's been killing until Serenade feels that he's ready to challenge him again. And his role in the adaptations have been all over the place, because the manga decided to use him to influence the leader of Gospel, while the anime didn't use him until Beast. It's a shame too, because he has the potential for a great fighter. He can create a shadow that turns into a weapon, so that's an excuse to give him different combos and weapons to hit with. Summons tunnels in midair for bats to attack. He can switch between using fire, ice, and lightning. Has super armor, and when his health is reduced to have his attack, his pattern reverses, which would be really interesting to see how that can be incorporated as a gameplay mechanic, if not annoying to fight against. Hollow is a lot more complicated. He's Lady Vega, or Dr. Orihime's assistant, who was based off the glowing image of her lover Altair, who died in a war, and her goal is to use the technology of Mew to create a world where she decides who lives after dealing with entitlement from people who caused that, and resurrect them. So that's her excuse to have her show up in his intro and victory animations. And Hollow is no pushover. They can summon viruses with any of the 4 elements, has a ring barrier of electricity called the Hollow Barrier that can absorb damage, but can actually be kind of broken, so we could use it as a good super. He can fire lightning with Thunder Bazooka, and the black equivalent can be used as another super, and the anime gave him a lot of good hand-to-hand skills we can take as part of his normals, but like in the games, we're going to need to balance that, so we're going to keep him slow like he usually is there. A lot of people thought it was weird that she didn't show up in the 3rd game, which I agree with, because both her boyfriend and Jack and Tia's country were eliminated because of war, and I feel like a connection they didn't take advantage of for some reason was right there, especially since King is the type of person that she would hate or probably cause that war, and the war is probably the same one that caused Jack and Tia their homes, which should offer a unique exchange there. And she said she wanted to talk to Geo in the games too, so let's use the story mode and character interactions to explore that. Afterwards, let's go to Cosmo Man EXE and Cygnus Wing. Starting with Cosmo Man, he is a Darkloid in both the anime and the game, and is probably the more humanoid out of all the space theme bosses, with attacks ranging from vanishing into space portals and spamming the battlefield with planet spheres, firing comets. And in the anime, he was strong enough to break Mega Man's cross fusion, which was pretty hard for most villains to do, while in the manga, he was Regal's second in command and even merged with Nebula Grey. But the only thing people don't like about him was that he really didn't have a personality outside of his love for carnage and negative emotions, which we could lean into to give him more personality. As for Cygnus Wing, I really wanted to find a way to include him. I know there's an argument overlap with Jack, but Cygnus was more mythological in his attacks and maneuvers, which the anime played up more than in the game, because in the game you kind of just motivated Tom to cause chaos for his own sake, while he was kind of the main antagonist to the first half of the anime. But regardless, his fighting style mostly revolved around using wind and tornadoes in order to attack the opponent from afar before going in close. He has extra moves like firing his feathers and then reabsorbing them, making his feathers explode, has viruses, can hypnotize people, all of which we can combine to make someone who wears the opponent down from afar before coming in close. Now, we've got tough bosses, but we haven't included the main big bads or their partners, so we're going to include a few of them, and for anyone worried about how we're going to make some of them fighters, I got a few ideas. The next pair is Laserman EXE and Joker. It's not because they look alike, I promise, although that would help when it comes to reusing assets. Starting with our Battle Network representative, Laserman was a member of Nebula in both the anime and the games, but the anime was the one that made him a lot stronger, to the point where he was able to rip Shademan into pieces and took over the leader of the Darkloids from Shademan, and he's just downright dangerous. He's got hand blast, super armor, and all types of lasers. Cross from his eyes, star break to blast debris down on the opponent, power down where it can remove abilities, which can be used to take on any character's installs or form changes, and his dark laser where he creates a hole that can help him regenerate, which we can turn into a super where he blasts a hole around and turn the opponent into dust. He is really powerful and dangerous if you do not block, and he's worked at Regal, so we can have Regal show up in his introductions and victory animations. He died in the anime while the games kept him alive with amnesia, but we could also just have him regain his memory and be torn about whether or not he wants to fight for good or evil. As for Joker, he was practically the heavy of the 3rd game, with the reveal that not only is he Dealer's field agent, he's also the main villain's wizard with insane combat abilities. We couldn't use King because his EM wave change form is a little bit too hard to shrink down as a fighter, but Joker is an axe-crazy murderer psychopath who isn't afraid to get physically dirty with his hands. He eliminated Luna, who, need I remind you, isn't even 18 yet, and was so strong that it required a sacrifice from Ace to put down, and that was after Joker self-destructed. Even Geo barely beat him. He can also flash step to get close to his opponent, so while we would have to nerf his speed for balancing purposes, yeah, he's practically going to be another Juggernaut. Story-wise, just say he got resurrected, or we would have King show up in his intro, where I'd say that he also got resurrected, but as Data. He did want to be independent, so we could make Joker's arcade mode interactions revolve around that. But let's get some big bads you can actually play as. Mostly. Our next pair is the Duo Program and High King Cepheus. And this is where I'm either going to lose you guys, so just hear me out first. Duo is a reimagining of the classic Duo from the Mega Man Classic games, and for his new version in the Battle Network franchise, in the games he was an advanced net navi from a universe created to explore space and punish life if they were evil, but the problem fans had with him was that he came too late into the game and wasn't set up properly. In the anime, it was revealed that towards the end of Access that Regal and Miss Yuri saw his comet and became his probes, which allowed them to survive a plane crash that killed almost all of the passengers besides those two, and he would use them to monitor human life and alter the human DNA to give them superhuman abilities, though they defected and decided to control the world. At least one of them did. But at the beginning of the next season in stream, Duo became alerted to Regal's actions and was getting ready to erase Earth until he was curious by Lan and Chad fighting the viruses, since he never saw a human and Navi work together. So Duo gave them the crest that allowed them to see his comet to give humanity a chance to prove that they deserve survival, and it was revealed that he was created to control another species. But Duo defected because he felt the network was born from flawed emotion and will destroy anything with potential harm to the universe. The 13 heroes, almost all of whom were based off the teams in Battle Network 5, confronted him, but he took them all out in one attack, initially ordering the net navis to come with him, but they defended their human partners and friends and swayed Duo into using cross fusion with him and Colonel to explore the universe and spare humanity. The issue some people had is that Duo had at least over 50 episodes of build-up, only for him to be too strong for anyone to realistically defeat him. While in the games he was defeated, but people didn't like that he came out of nowhere, so here's my compromise. At least from the anime and concept art, he has legs, so we can shrink him down to be sentient level, and keep the fact that humanity beat him the first time, like in the game, but with the two timelines converging, he's coming back to Earth, though this time we can make it that he's trying to help humanity, but one of the threats has forced him to shrink down to conserve power so he doesn't just eliminate everyone off the gate. So if you hated him in the game, you have an opportunity to probably beat him up now without being too broken, and if you hated him in the anime, you have an opportunity to beat him up with also being too broken. Plus, there's a few antagonists in Battle Network and Starforce that would make a very interesting amount of interactions for him if they met, which is part of the reason why I'm including Cepheus. Now, some of you guys are questioning why include him. He wasn't even a boss, and that's part of the reason why. When you have a crossover game, one of the cool things that you can do is take opportunities that never got a chance to take place within the main canon, and Cepheus not fighting was kind of the point, since the whole story in the first game was about Geo having to grow enough to be mature instead of hiding away, while Cepheus was a coward who always feared that his people were going to betray him. So having him fight now would actually show that he's ready to stop being afraid and take action. Now, yes, he did get redeemed, so I'm not necessarily making him a villain, but given that we have Battle Network villains who kind of don't give a damn, he would likely step into the ring in order to make sure whatever's going on would be put to an end. And this would be a good opportunity to flesh out what he can do, especially since he sent Andromeda to wipe out planet AM, and I feel like we can use Andromeda for some supers and an ultimate, but Omega said that without Andromeda he wouldn't be able to fight, and I think we could also lean into that while also incorporating a few other mediums. He can resurrect his defeated servant, so we can have him summon some of the other FMEMs that aren't in the game as attacks. He was able to emit a light strong enough to destroy Gemini Spark White, so we can make him someone with a lot of powerful attacks and abilities, but his health wouldn't be so strong like Omega implies. After all, no matter how much might you have, if your mental health ain't good, you'll crumble. Alright, I got 2 more pairs left and 4 options, so if you thought my choices were bizarre, you haven't seen nothing yet. Let's go with Nebula Gray, Chaos Lord, and Apollo Flame. Now, I was going to make the argument earlier that for Joker and Laserman, we could just reuse assets since they would have similar models, but I decided to save that joke because this is exactly what Nebula Gray, Chaos Lord would be for. For the unfamiliar, Chaos Lord, also known as Lord of Chaos, who in Japan they called King Chaos, is a secret boss in Battle Network 5. You can find him in the Nebular Area 6 where all of the dark power in the world accumulates, which you can find after all the liberation missions are completed. And if you defeat a Dark Soul version of all 6 of your teammates, depending on the game, you'll come across Chaos Lord taking the form of Nebula Gray Alpha. But after you receive a battle chip from Duo and defeat him the first time, he will take the form of either Nebula Gray Beta, Base version 3, or Dark Mega Man. I was tempted to put Dark Mega Man as an easy Echo Fighter, but considering that Chaos Lord has the powers of a combination of Nebula Gray, Dark Mega Man, and Base, this is a great opportunity to just make it Nebula Gray with Base's appearance and some of Dark Mega Man's powers. So we'd essentially be combining 3 villains into one, since Nebula Gray is a bit too big, but this would be the closest way to have him in the humanoid form so we can fight as him. And I think so to make him a really good hybrid of EXE and Base, as he's super powerful, but you have to work and play smart in order to get access to all his techniques and abilities. So he would be broken, but you would have to work your butt off in order for it to pay off. As for Apollo Flame, he's easily one of the most interesting aspects of Star Force 2, even to people who don't like that game. And he's one of the reasons I wish the Tribe anime was 55 episodes and longer, so that they could include him, because he's from an alternate dimension that was released from Mu after Dr. Vega awakened it, and he became the ruler of that dimension who had destroyed all human life on Earth. And when Geo enters the portal, he makes a plan to try and invade their dimension, even using if-wave change users based off the bosses from the first 2 games. And he was popular enough to return in a secret area for Star Force 3, being under control of another EM being I can't wait to talk about. And he would not be an easy opponent to fight. He has regenerative barriers that surround him, which you would have to do damage, so he can make normal attacks something that wouldn't work normally, so you'd have to make stronger techniques in order to break it. He's got snake-like flames with his prominence flare. Tornado flare summons 3 tornadoes, which you can use for zoning. You have solar flare, which he creates a huge wall of fire and hurls at the player's current position, so we can make one of those a special, while we can make a super, a way big version of that. And then we have Meteor Flare, where he summons several meteors, we can also upgrade into a bigger super. He's one of those characters where if you're not that knowledgeable about Mega Man, you wouldn't really know him, but if you are, you're going to be really appreciative of him being in the game. But I got 2 more characters to talk about, so if these were my ultimate surprise picks, then who are the final 2? Well, if I search underneath and far into space, you know what we'll find? Serenade and Sirius. Okay, Serenade should be no surprise on this one. Easily the ensemble dark horse of this franchise, which has been in the games and the manga, but not the anime. Though the devs tried to get him in Battle Network 6, but ran out of time. Basically, Serenade ranks number 1 on the internet, rumored to be the strongest in the cyber world, able to defeat Base after fighting for days with him. They got attacks, ultrasonic booms, and Orbitech that can move across the battlefield, and they have a Holy Shock where they release a deadly flash that can damage anyone and blast them back, which we can also upgrade into a stronger super and ultimate. Plus, in a manga, they have a technique that allows them to reflect any incoming projectile, so that's a lot of tools for a very interesting, unique character. And story-wise, if the FMAMs are interacting or under control of command of some new threat, Serenade will be willing to fight. And that big threat of the game we're going to have is Sirius. He is a secret boss of Star Force 3 and is a controller of a black hole, which he uses to attack other planets and stars, sucking them up and adding them to his collection, which no concern to what happened to the planet and views everyone else as beneath him, to the point where he's built recopies of other bosses throughout the game, and is so strong that even Apollo Flame is working under him. And we need to find a way to justify the crossover, so let's say that he made a copy of Clockman EXE from the crossover when they remade Battle Network 1, and used their replica to go back in time and try to take over the Earth in the past, forcing the Star Force characters to work with the EXE characters to defeat him and the rest of the villains that Sirius is recruiting for revenge. I feel like I don't even need to get into his abilities because, again, he's the ultimate secret boss of Star Force 3 and the last one they face off against. So you know what? He's the final star in this constellation we call a roster. And we are done, and now I'm gonna have to fit a whole roster inside of a Google slide to fit all 40 characters, aren't I? Well, as long as the video doesn't take too long, and the script is almost 9,000 words, which means it's gonna take me at least 45 minutes of recording. Yay! But as someone who's always had appreciation for Mega Man, Battle Network, and War and Star Force, I'm just glad that the series is getting resurgence, and Capcom now knows that people care about the brand. And I hope I'll be financially stable in order to play these games and at least be decent at them, since the last time I played a Battle Network game. Normally, it would make sense to go into some more game mechanics, like should you incorporate the elements, or what would the stages be like, or who would be the giant boss battle, or go into DLC. Hey, if you want my honest thoughts, when I was coming with this roster, I was debating whether or not to try to have a balance of all the Battle Network game characters as representatives, but I feel like I did the best that I could with all the main characters, villains, and the wild cards. Not to mention, I don't know if talking about the anime would be a double-edged sword for this video so much, but the games have taken influence from the anime before. That's why Pride's personality changed from 2 to 5, to the point that it actually makes sense that a princess and a struggling nation wouldn't want to side with a Taurus. I guess in the comment section below, tell me who your favorite characters in Battle Network and Star Force are. What are some of your favorite moments from the anime? What's your personal favorite game? Which character would you like to see as a playable fighter in any Capcom related fighting game? Would you like to see Battle Network or Star Force representation in another Capcom crossover? Did you watch the Anti-Warrior and Rockman EXE anime and the Star Force anime like I did? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Comment below for all your thoughts, since roster videos are kind of hard to make. Thanks for watching again, NPIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off. Okay, fine. DLC or day one pre-order Bullman, it would be really funny, and I never liked that in the anime. He was forced to become a Dark Lord against his will, and they treated him like an enemy instead of that one that needed the vaccine chip. And Diamond Ice, because this roster can't be too much of a sausage fest, and Bella Sweet, while Dia Iceburn's jealousy would be fun to watch for interactions. I put Tori Freud from the anime since it makes sense to be rivals in the game than his dad, but his dad is one with the actual model. And I don't know if they can take the model from the anime for the kid, but that's all I got. Actually, if you could add 5 more EXE and 5 more Starforce characters to this roster, this game could be 50 playable characters with 25 on each side. Who would be the 10 you include? Let me know, and I'll consider that as part of the DLC. Also, because I forgot to say this, if you made it this far, type in the comments and say it with me. Jack in, power up. And EM wave change on air.